All right, so this knife thoughts video is going to be about this knife, and this is the Kizer C01C Sheepdog XL. And this is a knife designed by Chris Conaway of Sheepdog Knives. And Kizer has done several different versions of it. The first or normal version had a 3.25 inch blade. Then they also have a mini version with a 2.6 inch blade. And this version has a pretty serious 4-inch blade. So the first thing you notice about this knife is that it is really, really big. Like I said, it's a 4-inch blade, so there are knives that are longer than that, right? There's like the Spyderco Police 4, lightweight, which has a little bit longer blade. But as you can see, there's a big difference in the tallness of the blade. And really that's where the Sheepdog XL kind of dwarfs most other knives. So here's another big knife, the ZT0561, a little bit taller in the blade than the Spyderco Police 4, but still nowhere near as tall as the Kizer Sheepdog XL. And then getting into even bigger here with the Cold Steel 4MAX Scout, which is a very big knife with a very tall blade. It is still not quite as tall as the Kizer Sheepdog XL. So this is a very wide, you would say, knife, and not wide in this direction. It's pretty normal in that direction, but in this direction, right? It's about 1.75 inches tall on the blade there. My measurement is a little bit bigger than that. That's a measurement from knife dealer sites, but I think that it's a little closer to 2 inches. But either way, it's a very, very tall blade. And that's really why I got this. So I got this knife in part because I like big, kind of ridiculous knives like this. And while it is super big, it's not so long like some knives like Cold Steel makes, and Kershaw has a 5.5-inch bladed knife coming out this year. Those are difficult sometimes to literally fit the length of the knife in your pocket. This knife, that's not as big of a deal. It's more the width of it. The other reason I got this knife is because I've been really wanting to have a Micarta handled modern folding knife. And I got the Spyderco Shaman in Micarta and Z-Wear. It had some issues when I got it. I ended up selling it. Meanwhile, I got this so that I could have a modern knife with a Micarta handle. And the Micarta is really nice looking, so I do really like Micarta handles, and I think it looks good on a knife like this. With the milling, as you can see, milling on both sides. Now, I have oiled this, and generally I think Micarta handles on moderns particularly, as well as also traditionals, look better after you oil them. It's certainly a lot darker and has a more kind of full color to it than when I received it. But I really like the feel of the handles also. This Micarta, it's a relatively rough Micarta. You can feel the threads kind of, poking through there. You can actually see it from this angle. See the threads there actually sticking out. And so that gives you a lot of grip. I also do like this design. So this is kind of like a cleaver or modified sheepfoot. It's not a true sheepfoot because it does have curve in the edge. It's a little bit more of a cleaver because it doesn't have the rounded corner here. It has actually this concave corner. But it's a cleaver type blade, and cleaver blades were really popular for a while. They kind of are still popular, but they were like really, really popular for a while. And I was never that into them, but for some reason, this blade shape kind of did speak to me. And you might think it's impractical, but really, you get a pretty good amount of belly. You get a good blade length there. It's almost 4 inches, maybe 3 3/4 or 3.6 something on the actual edge length. You get a pretty good, curve to it. You get a relatively usable tip also. It's certainly not the pointiest tip in the world, but it's usable. And it slices really well. I've found probably in part, even though it is, a saber grind, it's not a full flat grind, it slices really well. And so I've enjoyed this knife a lot. While some people I've seen reviews say that, you can't carry anything else in your pocket when you're carrying this knife, I haven't found that to be the case. I have carried this, several days with it and my phone in my right front pocket, which I carry modern knives in my right front pocket as well as my phone. And I didn't really have any issue with that. Now, certainly your pocket is full with both of those things in the pocket, but I didn't really have an issue where I couldn't put anything else in my pocket when I had this in it. So I have enjoyed it. It has cut well for me, and you know, just a really cool kind of ridiculous knife. As you can see, it has a tip up right side only pocket clip, which is fine for me because that's how I carry my knives. It is a flipper. It has 154 cm steel, and it does flip really nicely. It came to me flipping really well, very strong, very solid detent to it, and it has ball bearings, so it is drop close, which is kind of to be expected with such a big heavy blade. But one thing that I wasn't super in love with was the shape of this flipper. Now, I think on the smaller versions it wouldn't have been as big a deal, but I'll put a picture here to the side up here showing what this flipper looked like previously in the closed position, and you can see that it had the corner was up here rather than down here. And so what would happen is when I would flip it, my finger, the pad of my finger, would be going right onto that corner instead of onto this flat. And while I'm sure there's going to be people who think, oh, you just have wimpy fingers, or you know, something like that, toughen up, you know, I do a job where, you know, at least a quarter of the time I'm teaching a martial art, and so, you know, strengthening my hands are strong, but they're definitely not the roughest hands around. I don't have a lot of calluses and stuff like that. But that said, I don't really think you should have to like prove your toughness with your knives. It shouldn't be miserable to open up a knife a few times because you like, you know, the action. So, you know, I decided to modify it, and basically I just, you know, used a Dremel to grind this down a little bit. It does not by any means look perfect. You can see there, you know, it's not as polished as the rest of the blade, maybe not 100% even there on this edge, but from the side I think it looks fine. I did scratch it up a little bit there, but from the side I think it looks fine, and it feels a lot better on flipping to me. And the reason for that is because when I pull this out of my pocket, my hand is about here. So if I, you know, if the corner was where it was, then my finger's going right into the corner. When it's like this, where I gave it this angle, the pad of my finger is on that flat. So I can still, you know, do a very easy light switch style flip, and if I really want to, I can push straight into the other kind of flat there and do more of a push button. But I generally prefer the light switch style flip. So I'm happy with this modification I did. It certainly shouldn't affect the performance of the edge in any way because, you know, it's very far away from the edge. It didn't get hot or anything like that. And I do think that the flipping is more comfortable and works better for me. Now, as for the handle, I think it's pretty ergonomic. You get your finger into this area, then there's this palm swell, and you can kind of sit down there, and this curve here allows for your thumb. So it does make sense in this type grip, and I've, you know, used it in this type grip here, also a pinch style grip. Now, I do think that this palm swell is pretty wide, pretty tall, because it is, you know, such an enlarged version. It might be more comfortable, in my opinion, if this palm swell was a little bit less extreme and without this hump here. But it's pretty comfortable. I haven't really felt any like major hot spots or anything like that while I've been using it. So I have enjoyed it a lot. It's a very ridiculous knife in its size, but pretty practical actually, as long as you're okay carrying it. It cuts well. It is well made. Like I said, came with, you know, great action, no blade play whatsoever. I haven't adjusted it at all. No blade play even when unlocked, which is really great. Well centered. The grinds seem pretty good. Now there is a spot you can see right here where it's a little bit wavy as compared to this side, which is pretty perfect. But, you know, other than that, really well made. And I got this from White Mountain Knives. They had sent, I'd been planning to get one of these for a while, and they kind of would go out of stock before I did it, and, you know, kind of I would go back and forth. But they became available again at pretty much a lot of the dealers. And White Mountain Knives, who I've purchased knives from before sent me like a discount code, you know, not a personal discount code to me, but like a marketing email discount code for 10% off. And these are typically about $99. So brought it down to about $90. And I think that's a pretty fair price for this. Even $100, I think, is a pretty fair price for what you're getting, the size and you know, the cool factor and everything like that. But definitely at $90, I feel pretty good about this purchase. The interesting thing is that the different handle materials are generally all the same price. So the micarta and the carbon fiber are both normally about $99. They have some other versions also. I think they have a green G10 and a black G10. But I went with the micarta, even though, you know, carbon fiber generally is more expensive and it's the same on this knife. I went with the micarta because I just wanted to have a micarta knife. So I've been enjoying this, and I think if you want a really, really big, ridiculous knife, this is a good option. So if you enjoyed this video, feel free to like it, subscribe to my channel, and hit the bell so you know when I post new videos. Also check out my social media at Knife Thoughts on Instagram and Facebook, and my website, knifethoughts.com, where I post articles on knives like this and knife-related topics. And last but not least, as always, don't forget to go out and do good.